Hi, everyone. Welcome back to the SDG Pavilion here at COP27 in Sharm el-Sheikh, Egypt. My name is Ariel Alexevich with UN DESA, host of the SDG Pavilion, and I'm joined by a very special guest, Peter Thomson, the UN Secretary General's Special Envoy for the Ocean. Welcome.
Thank you very much.
Great. So today here at COP is Adaptation Day, and something that we've been hearing all week is how we need more financing for adaptation and mitigation efforts. So, you know, the ocean is all part of these climate efforts. So I'm hoping, Ambassador, you can tell us how ocean financing would be a great idea too.
You know, when you come to these conferences, in some ways you dread them because you know the circus that's going to go on. But there was a very good message that was given to us by the Pacific Elders before we came, which was to keep our focus on two things. One is the decarbonization of the global economy. You know, when you're wandering around here feeling lost and wondering what you're doing, remember you're here to decarbonize the global economy. And secondly, to get finance to those who are most impacted by climate change. Okay, that's so I've been trying to focus on those two things as I move around the place. When you talk about adaptation, yeah, I think that the needle has moved in that direction. Obviously, mitigation is still our big drive, and we, as the demonstrators outside are saying, 1.5 to stay alive, and I'm with them. I would like to be out in that crowd right now because I firmly believe that anything beyond 1.5, and we're really putting our children and grandchildren in jeopardy. But this morning, I'll give you an example. You know, if you think about adaptation from people at the edge, right? And obviously, desertification is one category there. But think about people on a Pacific Island atoll nation. They know that change is coming. And in our meeting this morning, we were focusing on that. You know, change is inevitable. And of course, change is always with us. But with climate change, this is existential challenges that we are faced with. So picture yourself out there on that atoll with your water supply turning to salt, with your plants all dying because of their roots of being in salt water now instead of fresh water, with storms coming through where the waves are raging over the top of your island. What are you going to do? How are you going to adapt? Right now, there's no perfect human being on this. We're all part of the problem. But without doubt, this has been caused by the Industrial Revolution, and it's basically the societies of the North that have benefited from that and are the producers of the greenhouse gas emissions. So for those people on the edge that I've just described, they look to the North to say, well, you know, we're not pointing a finger at you. We're just saying, hey, we're drowning here. Where is the money for us to adapt? Because we're going to have to build sea defenses. We're going to have to think about things like solar desalinization. We're going to have to think about vertical farming, all that sort of stuff to replace our traditional ways of life. So adaptation is the name of the game. And I've been calling for years for the climate finance needle to move in the direction of the sustainable blue economy, because that's the future of humanity. The ocean is going to provide for us. And I think you're starting to see that now. There have been some very big announcements made at this COP, and people like the Green Climate Fund and Jeff are definitely shifting in the direction of the ocean.
Yeah, thank you for that, Ambassador. And I think you raised some interesting points and some great points. And you talked about the activists that are outside. There are a lot of young people out there. There are people from countries on the edge, like you mentioned. And what is your message for these young activists who are demanding intergenerational justice because they live in countries that are small islands or developing countries? What do you say to them?
Firstly, I would say that young people should be at the decision-making tables and on all global decisions of importance. And I'm not talking about, you know, somebody who knows how to hold up a demonstration placard, because I know how to do that as well, and I'm out there with them. I'm talking about somebody who's better than me, somebody, let's say it's a fisheries meeting. A young early career professional in fisheries is of more value to me at that decision-making table than having me there. If the meeting is about, let's say, coral reefs, it's actually more valuable to have a young career professional who just got their master's or their PhD on coral reef ecosystems at that decision-making table than having me there. So I'm all in favor of youth being at the center table. I think the other part of the logic in that is that they're going to have to live with the decisions that are made, because not all decisions turn out to be correct. But they're going to have to live with the decisions and will help change the course of the decisions through the course of their lives. So I think that my message to young people would be, don't confine yourself to standing outside and demonstrating. Come in, get on the main table and make those decisions. And you say, how do you do that? Well, an organization like this is a member state organization. So you have to be in your country's delegations. Same things at the United Nations. Member state, most of these organizations that are making the big decisions are member state organizations. So it's down to the country's concern to make sure that youth, suitably qualified youth, are part of their delegations. So, in terms of intergenerational justice, you don't have to be young to demand that. I demand that for my grandchildren.
Absolutely. And sir, if I can just ask you, looking ahead, so for 2023 and beyond, how can we take the motivation from the UN Ocean Conference earlier this year through this COP and then into 2023? What should we look forward to going ahead?
Well, firstly, for the ocean, and remember it was the small island developing states that called for SDG 14 to come into existence, to sustainably use the resources of the ocean, to conserve it. So that was us that created SDG 14. And I can assure you, without the small island developing states, it would not be there, because I was part of the creation of the SDGs, and I can tell you that for a fact. So first of all, I call upon SIDS to continue to be at the front line when it comes to ocean action. We have had now 2 UN Ocean Conferences. The idea of the UN Ocean Conferences is to support the implementation of SDG 14. That's why we gather. And France and Costa Rica have now offered to host the 2025 one. And there's already a couple of countries talking to me about 2028. So, the impetus is there. People see the value of these UN Ocean Conferences. But it's not just the UN Ocean Conferences. If you think of things like the UN Water Summit, which is happening in March next year in New York, the linkage between fresh and salt water is so obvious, through the hydrological cycle, which is why we had the high-level symposium at the UN Ocean Conference for fresh water, because we obviously have many issues in common, whether it's rising sea levels or failures of monsoons or pollution coming down rivers. These are all connections between salt and fresh water. So that UN Water Summit next year, very important, and the saltwater community will be there in force. But then think ahead also to the SDG Summit in September, where again, SDG 14 will have a prominent role to play.
All right, a lot ahead of us and a lot still to do here at COP27. So thank you, Ambassador, for being here. Next time we interview you, we'll invite some youth to join us.
That would be fantastic.
Great, thank you for being here.
I'll bring my granddaughters along.
We would love to have them. Thank you.
Okay.
And thank you for tuning in, everyone. We'll see you next time at the SDG Pavilion.
Thank you.